During normal rendering, if a texture has been applied to an object, Mendeley will do what we call a point sample or a bilinear lookup. So for a given UV coordinate, it will simply look at one particular location in the image. And these very simple point lookups obviously will tends to be less precise as the actual distance or actual screen coverage reduces. In this example, we have a very high repeat texture. So as you can see now, it has a very poor anti-aliasing settings, such that you have this this very noisy result. I've done that on purpose just to show you that changing slightly, just slightly, the actual object position will generate an important difference between what's been rendered in this current settings and a different position. So I will slightly just change it to 0.001. You see now it's changing drastically here, but very little here. The reason why is that the point sampling here is quite precise because the actual surface is quite close, but when it's really far away, that very small distance difference here, for example, will cause a major shift in the actual lookup location here. So if I start to increase this just by 0.2, pretty standard here, but again here it's going to change so much in terms of lookup, and that is actually the reason why it's causing such a an important flickering at render time. One of the one of the ways actually to solve this this flickering is obviously start to increase the actual anti-aliasing up to a level where the actual shimmering will eventually disappear. So a good way to test if a setup is actually viable in terms of flickering and shimmering is actually doing a render, a very small render. For example, let me just stop the actual region and define a region right here. As we see here, it's now it's quite noisy here. If I do actually increase it by 1, normally I wouldn't see that much different, but here I will actually see a difference. So let's say 0.4. As you can see, the incoming tiles look totally different than the previous tiles. So for sure, this actual setup, even though you have increased it, will shimmer. So if I start to lower the anti-aliasing threshold here, then I'll start to get away from the noise here, so it's going to look a little bit more filtered. So obviously this will cost a lot of time, because the more you lower the actual threshold, more the actual maximum level is going to be reached. So if I increase this just by 0.5 and we'll look at the incoming tiles, we slightly see a shift between the actual previous tiles and new tiles. So this is a proof that it's going actually to shimmer and flicker. If we oversample systematically very high resolution, let's say up to 4, then we may actually start to get the actual problem to disappear, but there's a flickering will always still exist in this particular condition. So let me show how elliptical filtering is designed and works to be able to resolve this particular problem.